Hello, guten Tag und grüß Gott. Today is Wednesday, June 22, 2023. So we've just passed the summer solstice and we're heading into summer. And, you know, the summer solstice is a big deal in some places. Not so much here. I think, though, everybody said happy summer. In any case, I just became aware of the fact that I've made 71 videos already. And my wife and I just reviewed one that I made 2 years ago in 2020. And wow, 2020, and it's 2023. So that was 3 years ago. Anyway, you know, talking about the pandemic and everything, it was really interesting to look at that as kind of a historical memento of the time. And, you know, it gives the impression of the time as to what is going on, you know, how do we feel about it? And, you know, what are our surroundings like? And of course, it was really interesting, you know, 3 years later to kind of look at this and see how that came about, you know, with our pandemic. And because I think it was 2020, it was 2020 when we had, you know, the first lockdown, you know, the safer at home time. Anyway, so I haven't made a video in a long time. And so I want to, you know, I want to go through, actually, I thought, you know, I wanted to start on my spiritual journey, which I've promised to make a video on, you know, is how do I feel about, you know, things that are that I consider higher than myself, okay? But in any case, the news has been piling up, and this is only part of it, you know, since the last video. I don't even remember exactly when we made it, but news has happened, and news needs to be memorialized. You know, the kind of news that I pick, certainly, you know, for my my preferences. So let me just get started with the month of June. So the Wall Street Journal on 1st of June says, House passes the debt ceiling spending deal. And I think I probably talked about that during the last video of how, you know, we've been wrestling with extending the debt ceiling so that we can actually spend money and we don't have to default on our loans and so forth. And some of the loans, you know, go to China and, you know, other countries. And that's, so it's really important. And what's really important about that is also that if our debt rating is lowered, you know, of course, the interest goes up, you know, so it costs us more money. And so the Republicans and the Democrats are wrestling over this thing. The Republicans, you know, of course, want to cut out all of those sweetheart things, you know, that they consider non-essential in the budget, and of course the Democrats. Well, hey, the Democrats, they understand their voter base, and they want to keep on spending and giving money away, and so you know, so they're upset about things, you know, that the Republicans want to cut. I suppose, you know, that discourse is important and we need to have it, but it's a real embarrassment because, you know, other countries are looking at us and are saying, hey, you know, these Americans, you know, if they don't know how to govern themselves, why should we follow them, you know? And it does look like we don't know how to govern ourselves. But let me just say that democracy is messy business. And, you know, so we're following democracy here. As the main philosophical way to to govern, and that's that causes problems, causes messes. But you know, it also has its benefits because, you know, this messiness is also subject. You know, from an evolutionary standpoint, disruption has always brought about some progress. Now, okay, so there was the disruption of the Bronze Age and the collapse, but it can also collapse, of course. So civilization can also collapse. But disruption, by arguments and so forth, is it's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be an evolutionary path to something better. Anyway, so much on that. So the House did pass the debt ceiling, and so we can pay our bills again. And of course, they're still going to argue, about what's in the budget and so on. So that's what's going on this month. Oh, let me just go on with the next Wall Street Journal here. And I'm not going to go through all of them, of course. But here's the big thing that's going on. Is Trump is indicted in the Files case. And the Files case just means that he took a bunch of files that were marked confidential and secret, and so the well, I think it was the Democrats. Whoever the government, basically the Democratic executive branch that controls the DOJ, decided to file charges, and he was actually indicted on 32 issues and 32 charges. They included, and they were federal charges, they included violating the Espionage Act. So that's really bad for Trump. Another one that is kind of interesting right now is China plans a spy base in Cuba, and we're saying a spy base because that's probably what will happen. But the Chinese, they decided that they're going to approach the Cubans about doing joint exercises, whatever that means. The military exercises. So that's what that means. And so China will ultimately, or might ultimately, have a foothold in the Americas, with the military. And if that's the case, that doesn't bode well for us. Another thing that the Wall Street is reporting is that Zelensky's counteroffensive is gaining steam, but somebody blew up a dam on the river Dnieper or something of that nature, and now there's massive flooding. So it's really, really putting a new kind of context on the Ukrainian situation. So anyway, that's probably the big one, is Trump's indictment. So Djokovic takes the Grand Slam lead with a Paris win. Tennis player, really super guy. Now, of course, he's also caught the attention of the conservatives because he refused to be vaccinated. Okay. Anyway, also here, George Soros turns hands control to the empire to his 37-year-old son, who's evidently even more of a liberal than George Soros. But George has taken kind of a back seat, as I said. But who knows? George ain't dead yet. The Epstein thing is still out there, so we still don't know just exactly what went on with Jeffrey Epstein and who were on his guest list, through the taking the Lolita Express to his island hideaway. So, one of the things that goes on is that Clintons were big involved, in a lot of high officials in the government, were involved. And so, the internet says now the list of Epstein's clients is guarded closer than our atomic secrets, so. And here is another one of those things that says the Ukraine troops relish a chance to attack. Oh yeah, I mean, I can't believe that they're actually putting bullshit like this on a Wall Street Journal front page. You know, from what I remember about being in a war zone, is nobody relishes an attack, either coming or going on it. You know, I mean, watch any of the movies. Of course, if you read All Quiet on the Western Front, before World War One, all the youngsters, used to walk around, oh yeah, we need to go to war and all that, and they relished, the idea of going to war. I know they were quoting the Iliad, what Achilles said, anger and rage has Achilles, and so forth, and they were raging down the streets, against the Allies in Germany. And yeah, and then they found out what war was really like. Now, these guys already know that, although there are some that do relish the war. For instance, this particular picture that you just saw of a Ukrainian soldier, he is from the 68th Jaeger Brigade, okay? Now, Jaegers are the hunters, so it's possible that he really relishes war. So the Fed pauses the rate hikes, but signals more. So inflation has actually dropped some to a lower level than it did last year, rate of inflation, that is. In other words, like 16, 17%, so it dropped a little bit. And so the Fed actually paused another rate hike, but they're saying, hey, it's not over. We're still having potential inflation. So the market basically reacted a little positive, and the Dow Jones went up to 34,000, which is amazing. Because when I first looked at the Dow Jones back in the early 60s, it was like 500. Wow. Dow Jones Industrials, Anyway, yeah, so what is that? 2,000% increase? That is crazy, Anyway, so the PGA Tour and the Saudis Golf Association, they decided to merge, and so now they have peace because the Saudis were going off on their own way, and of course they have deep pockets, So the PGA didn't want the competition, so they got together, and as a matter of fact, they just played a big golf game in Los Angeles. And, an outlier kind of won, which is kind of neat, At one time, Tiger Woods was the outlier. So here again, our newspapers and the media, is talking about how well the Ukrainians are doing and how poorly the Russians are doing. And so here's another one of those headlines that says, Russia battles a labor shortage as Ukraine war thins their workforce. From my experience, you don't want to sell the Russians short. And I'm not sure that we're getting all of the right information here, because the Russians are probably right now feverishly upping their production of all kinds of weaponry. They did that in World War II, Yes, they had the help of the Allies, they sent tanks, jeeps, and all that kind of stuff from America. But, they know how to produce weaponry too. And as a matter of fact, Putin just talked about, a new missile system that Russia created, hypersonic missiles, with multiple warheads, the MIRVs. 10, 12 warheads at one time. How do you defend against that? Well, Reagan gave us Star Wars. Maybe that'll help. Well, Putin is defiant. So anytime that he talks on TV, he says, hey, don't count us out. He thinks he's going to win. Now, I don't know whether there's going to be any winning in the Ukrainian war, but who knows, how this is going to turn out. Hopefully it will not turn into World War III. Hopefully it will not turn into the nuclear holocaust. But anything is possible. So persistent inflation worldwide, while we have kind of slowed down on inflation, it's persistent worldwide and it keeps the heat on central banks. And here's something that just made the news in a big way recently. Titanic tourist craft goes missing in a dive, okay? And what's going on right now is that there's a search for this submersible that can actually go down to the depth of Titanic, which is, it's down on the ocean bottom here, 2.5 miles down in the ocean. And the pressures, have to be tremendous. But anyway, this submersible, this little submarine, was engaged by a bunch of rich people, for $250,000 a pop, to go down and to look around the Titanic. And it's been doing it a bunch of times. And now something has happened. And we won't know for a while, what has happened. But, it does look like, we basically lost it. So if something, the whole thing is made out of carbon fiber. The hull is mostly carbon fiber. And I've been told by my son, Patrick, that if carbon fiber is subjected to a pressure it can't stand, or it's somehow something initiated an event that would cause a collapse, it just shatters. Well, and that's it. That would be it. So I don't know what we'll find out about it. But, I have to tell you, people with an abundance of money, they're looking for some extreme fun because they can afford it, now going into space. As a matter of fact, Branson just announced that he'll do space tourism in an interesting way, is they're going to I think they're going to take a rocket up and then, go suborbital, and then bring it down, like the old Mercury capsules back into the sea. But the picture of the rocket, is really, or the observation thing is really quite something. I've seen it on the internet. It's these people are sitting around in luxury, looking at the Earth, down below and so forth. So it has its attraction. And Branson, he's done crazy things, going to swim in the Amazon, and with I don't know, bad things, like fish that eat you and so on, and maybe crocodiles and snakes and so forth. But extreme tourism is an attractive thing for people with money. And with this particular sub, it may have gone south, so, which is sad. It's really, really sad. And, we always thought, we've been told this now since, I think, last Sunday or so when the sub went missing, that, they have a limited air supply and so forth, but they just couldn't find it. And probably because they can't find it, it's because it's no longer there. It's probably in pieces on the bottom, And that's freaking sad. Anyway, I've just told you that Trump, is being indicted, on espionage and, mishandling of classified files. And of course, he says, he's the president, he can take this stuff. And other presidents have taken this stuff. As a matter of fact, classified files have been found at Biden, at Biden's garage by his Corvette somewhere, and also with Mike Pence, So when these guys clear out their stuff, it all goes in boxes, and who knows what the heck gets in there. The thing is, what's a little different with Trump, is evidently, either he was told or anyway, it became clear that a bunch of files went with Trump, and the National Archives wanted to have them back, and so they said, "Hey, give us those files back." And they said, "Okay." Trump people said, "Okay, we'll give them back." They gave a bunch back, and then National Archives looked at what they got back, and it wasn't enough. They thought there was more stuff going. So what happened is they sent the FBI to raid the Mar-a-Lago compound, that is Trump's home, and they found a whole bunch of more files, and so they took all those files because, they belong to the government, don't really belong to Trump as such, but now he's arguing over it. So once these files were examined and so forth, the district attorney, some Democrat, okay, so that shows my proclivities for conservatism, decided to do an investigation, and they filed these 32 charges. But Hunter Biden has also done some bad stuff. And as a matter of fact, it turns out that he didn't pay any taxes in a couple of years, 2017 and 16, or maybe 18. And so there was an investigation of his misdeeds. And you know what? He decides to plead guilty. And so he gets this, what they now call a sweetheart deal, where he is on probation, and I think there's a fine involved, and all is good, So, if you're the son of the president, well, you get one treatment. And of course, that's what the Republicans are saying, and the Democrats are saying, no, this is all kosher. So I don't know, it just doesn't seem to want to pass my sniff test. I think that, well, I mean, okay. So all these guys are being chased, about January 6th, they did this bad stuff at Congress, okay? Sitting in Nancy's office and all that kind of stuff. We've got videos and all that. This was really bad stuff. But there was billions of dollars of damage done by the BLM riots in 2020, and Antifa, where they smash businesses and so forth. What, isn't anybody going to look for those guys? Well, I mean, these are all Democratic voters, so maybe they're just not being looked too hard for. And that's just, my bias talking, I'm sure. But I don't know. I'm having a lot of difficulties, with Democrats, pretending to be holier than thou. Okay. So, this is today's journal, June 22nd. Did I say Wednesday? Crap, it's Thursday. And I have to look at the date on it. So I want to show you this. There's a celebration going on at Stonehenge. Here it is, celebration at Stonehenge. But what's more interesting? This happens every year, and the hippies are going there to love each other. I don't know whether they still call it the lovin', but there was such a thing at one time. You may no longer be familiar with that term, but lovin' was. I mean, like the 69 concert. Anyway, China rebukes Biden for calling Xi a dictator. So imagine this, we sent Blinken over to China to, kind of stabilize and normalize relations between China and the United States, because, it's been kind of contentious. Chinese jets have been strafing our ships, and not strafing, but going near our ships, and, just kind of, it's kind of harassment there on the high seas. And of course, there's this base building in Cuba and so on. And so we've been really, and they're friends of the Russians, which are now, we're no longer Russian friendly. And So, so Biden says that Xi is a dictator in public, okay? And the Chinese are rightfully pissed because, it shows his shallow understanding of what's going on, of how the Chinese look at their leadership. I mean, the Chinese, they extrapolate, the government of a family to the government of the families. And so, and it's just kind of a thumbnail thing, is so, there is the head of household, which is the husband, and he's got and the wife and children are obedient. And the husband is in charge of taking care of the family, okay? And the same thing is happening when they elect somebody, or they don't necessarily elect, but they put somebody in charge of a nation like China. They don't call him a dictator or anything, but he's basically like the father figure to the people. He's supposed to take care of the people. And, from what I can tell, he's doing a pretty good job. And the Chinese think he's doing a pretty good job. There isn't a lot of opposition to this, As a matter of fact, what opposition there was to how the pandemic was handled there, with them welding people into the rooms and stuff like that. That's kind of behind us. And the people love their leadership. And so the Asians are kind of looking at government totally different. We're looking at government that, was given to us, basically, by our framers of the Constitution. And, they understood Plato and Greek government very well, and they thought that this was the way to go. And since America, basically became a powerhouse, and a leader of the world, basically, because of its economic might and so forth, the democracy seems to be the better system. Because, when Mao Zedong decided to go with communism, well, basically they had, they always call it, the century of humiliation, which was the colonial period. But they had another couple of decades of shame, basically, because the Great Leap Forward was a bunch of bullshit. There was nothing going on. The people were starving. It wasn't until the Chinese, after Mao Zedong decided to open up their country, and we brought a lot of manufacturing capability to them in order to produce products, cheaper for us here and cheaper for the world and so forth. And, I'm not going to argue the rightness of that kind of thing. But what I'm saying is that Biden is a freaking idiot. And the fact that I'm actually daring to say something like this, speaks highly, about democracy, because I don't expect a knock on the door because of what I just said. In China, you might. In other countries, you might, because you do this. And in Russia, you definitely would. If you say Putin is a freaking idiot, somebody will come to the door and say, we want our people to support our government. And you're not doing that. Well, here's your polonium, Okay, I'm exaggerating to make this point. Is that as messy as democracy is, it seems to be the best we've got right now. We do have to fix it somehow. But it turns out that the Americans always seem to rise to the occasion when they need to fix something. It's just like, the Germans always wondering, these Americans, I mean, what the hell is their strategy? They always seem to be in disarray and so forth. Well, they're really really good at situational awareness and solving problems. So, is Biden really a freaking idiot? Well, I wonder why he said that, actually. Because it's easy to dismiss that and say, well, Biden is just stupid. He shouldn't have said that. And the Chinese are now taking umbrage with this, and rightfully so. But You know, his son is under investigation. The Biden family is going to be investigated now because the Republicans are pissed about the disparity of how Biden is handled and Trump is handled, you know, with our government. And you know, maybe somebody advised him to say that because you know, the Democrats are going to be able to point to that saying, well, you think that Biden is in bed with the Chinese? Look at what the hell he did. He just said that Xi is an idiot. So, well, maybe that's what's going on. In any case, you know, a lot of times when you hear about things or you read about things or you see things, the first impression is not necessarily the best. Anyway, and this video has gone 30 minutes and this is blasphemy, you know, so I'm going to stop this. But, you know, I haven't had this much fun in such a long time that I just had to tell you about all these things. In any case, I wish you farewell, so long, auf Wiedersehen, and we must infect the universe with us.